as consultative selling, listening and asking questions, and providing value.
Hi, I'm Joshua Carlsen. In today's Ask an Expert segment, I'm going to be sitting down with Dave Kurlan. He's a best-selling author and he's also the founder of Kurlan and Associates, which is a sales leadership development and training firm. Today we're going to be talking about how to sell in today's environment, how to recruit some of the best salespeople, and the benefits of leveraging video to sell in today's market. It's something he's actually been doing for over a decade now. With that, let's get started.
All right, Dave, I'd like to welcome you to Ask an Expert segment that we have. Really appreciate you coming on board.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me today.
Definitely. So you are the author of a best-selling book. It's called Baseline Selling, and it talks about Baseline Selling, how to become a sales superstar by using what you already know about the game of baseball. There's something specific. There's a lot of elements to this, but there's the infield why rule that I'd love for you to articulate and what its importance is about.
Out of all the stuff in the book, you picked the infield Y rule.
I did.
It's really the essence of a consultative approach to selling.
Okay.
So in baseball, we have an infield fly rule.
Sure.
In baseline selling, we just change it to the Y rule, and that's the concept that you need to listen to what a prospect is saying and ask some version of a why question, like, why have you waited till now to do something about that? But you can also use the other adverbs, the how, when, where,
Sure.
what questions. So it's always be asking questions.
Yeah, and I think that this is important because I think a lot of businesses and a lot of salespeople miss that because they're just, I think there's an excitement about my product or the service that I have that I'm passionate about, but we're not actually talking to, the consumer about what their needs are. So what's a way to maybe break the ice when you're trying to open a conversation to even get to the whys?
Well, is it a very first time we've ever spoken, like a cold call,
Sure.
or is it the follow-up to a cold call?
No, the cold call.
Well, in a cold call, we want to use a positioning statement.
Okay.
And after we introduce ourselves, a positioning statement's going to be about 10 to 15 words,
Okay.
which articulates what kind of problem we solve
Okay.
for people like them. So it's very specific to the role of the person you're calling. Like if you're calling on a CEO,
Sure.
I help CEOs so they know it's about them,
Okay.
who have this kind of frustration, some emotional word
Yep.
over this kind of problem. And it's got to be a problem that we're pretty sure they have, so that
Yeah.
when they hear us say it, they're going to be saying to themselves, well, that's me.
Right.
And then we ask permission to ask a follow-up question, and we give two examples, more specific examples of the kinds of problems that we're solving right now for people like them. And that gets the conversation going. We ask them to pick one,
Okay.
and then first why question. Why'd you pick that one?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Natural lead into the why question.
Yep.
Okay. So Kurlan and Associates been around for quite a while. So over 30 years
Only
you've been.
35 years.
Yeah. So you've been running this baby for a long time. I'm curious what you were doing before you started this.
You really want to know?
I do want to know. Yeah. I love origin stories.
I was in the music business.
Okay.
I was both a professional musician,
Okay.
so that was my weekend gig,
Yep.
and I had a retail music business. We
Okay.
sold musical instruments and accessories, and we taught every imaginable lesson, but it wasn't the normal music store. It was a large single location business.
Okay.
We were doing more business than anybody, even some of the multi-location places. But we also had an outside sales force. I took my sales roots, and we had salespeople going out calling on schools,
Yep.
churches, and nightclubs.
Okay.
To the schools, we sold them musical instruments and repairs, and to the churches and nightclubs, we sold them sound systems.
Okay. Well, so when you obviously are passionate about music, right? So that got you into it. When's the moment kind of in your career where you have this aha moment where you realize, hey, you know what? I'm pretty good at this sales thing. I think that there's something more here.
I was 19 years old.
Okay.
I was selling Cutco knives door to door, like
Yep.
everybody else was when they were in college. Couple things. I was local, so
Okay.
I got to go through all my parents' friends, and that's what everybody did if they were local.
Yeah.
So usually, what happened is you went through all the parents' friends, maybe young girls that you knew that would be getting married sometime in the next 5 or 10 years,
Sure.
and then you quit. And the kids and the kids who were away from home at school made cold calls for 3 days and quit.
Yeah.
So it took me a month to get through all my parents' friends, and then I started making the cold calls.
Okay.
And I didn't last 3 days. I lasted 3 years. So I got promoted up to just about every position.
Okay.
And what I found out was that I did have some ability to get people to buy stuff from me, even though it was way overpriced and they didn't need it. But more significantly, I was recruiting. And while everybody else had 100% turnover because everybody quit in 3 days,
Yeah.
I was somehow able to retain the people I was recruiting, and they were responding to me.
Okay.
And I was able to train and coach them. So I was about 19 when I had the aha moment
Right.
and I said, I'm too good at this.
Sure.
I think this is the business I want to be in, some kind of sales, training, and coaching business. But I wasn't old enough. I didn't have enough experience. All I
Right.
had was this little piece of B2C,
Yeah.
and I didn't know any of the things I was doing that was causing anything to work.
Okay.
It, it,
Because you
I
were more
didn't know
natural.
what I didn't know.
Right. Right.
So I got 10 more years of experience selling and managing before I started the business in 1985. And
Okay.
of course, we don't do any B2C work at all.
Right.
Everything's B2B. We're in 200 different industries. Uh, but yeah, that's the origin story.
Okay. Well, like I said, I love origin stories. And you mentioned a word during yours, recruitment, and that actually bleeds into my next question, which is, what's the secret to recruiting, and perhaps more importantly, what's the secret to vetting good salespeople?
Another one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
So the secret to recruiting is to not screw up, to get it right the first time.
Well, how do you
So
do that?
well, don't use your gut. I
Okay.
mean, as long as I've been doing this and as good as I am,
Hmm.
I would never trust my gut
Okay.
over objective management group sales candidate assessment, which is
Okay.
accurate and predictive and customizable and tells me everything I need to know about whether that person will succeed in that role at that company in this industry selling this stuff to those people.
Right.
And there's help. So the secret is to use the tools that are available and use them consistently. But you've got to get the right candidates into the pool.
Sure.
So if you're using the best assessment on the planet, but you've got the wrong candidates in the candidate pool, you're just going to get back an endless stream of not recommendeds.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but if you attract the right candidates into the pool and use the right assessment, then you'll be able to identify the ones who will from the ones who might.
so then from the attraction standpoint, what do you recommend organizations do to get the attention of these attractive sales candidates?
They have to flip what they write for job postings upside down.
Okay.
Instead of being internally focused and describing the opportunity and the job and the money and the company and the benefits,
Yep.
um, they have to, we take them through a specking process where
Okay.
we spec the requirements of the role. What does this salesperson really have to be able to accomplish? And we have 30 variables that we go through, but we could add another 180 if we wanted to. So what are the requirements? And when we help them spec it from those specifications, we can write a good job posting that describes the candidate and their experiences so
Okay.
that they say, hey, this posting's describing me,
Right.
and they kind of self-select, and you'll still get the ones who apply to every position out there, and the assessment weeds them out. But now you're getting the candidate that's done the things you need them to have done, accomplished the things you need them to have accomplished, brings the skills that are required for the role, instead of everybody thinking they're the perfect candidate because all you did was describe your great company.
Right, exactly. And I think that that's a good, it mirrors, certainly a sales philosophy that I think a lot of people have and I've utilized, but, you want to try to mitigate the ideal client. Like you want to focus on those when you're having these initial conversations versus, opening the door to everybody because now I've spent a bunch of time trying to sell to somebody who really isn't a good client for me in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we are in a provocative time right now, right?
Really?
Just a
Did I
little
miss
bit.
something?
Maybe if you've been in a coma for a few months.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we're dealing with a health crisis. We're dealing with an economic crisis, and just recently, obviously, social unrest. It's a very I'm
Well, things
43.
happen in threes, right?
Yeah, right,
Maybe we're done.
exactly. So hopefully there's not going to be a fourth one here. What do you think that this kind of perfect storm? What do you think organizations should take away from that as it pertains to selling in today's environment?
A great question. And there's really been three stages. Early on, when everybody went into stay-at-home mode,
Sure.
the right advice was to call and just, are you okay? Do you need anything?
Right.
And then about 6 weeks later, there was a pivot, and everybody had to go on offense, and we were in pipeline building mode.
Yeah.
You know, people were on spending freezes, some people were closed. So it was build pipeline so that when this week came and pretty much the whole country was reopening, we could go all out. And right now, it's back to selling as normal. Certain verticals have been obliterated,
Yeah.
so you don't try to sell to those verticals. Certain segments have been obliterated, so you might not be trying real hard to sell to those segments. For instance, specialty retail is a segment of retail in general. And retail in general, all the big stores are fine, but the specialty retailers, a
Yeah.
lot of them aren't coming back.
Right.
Um, an industry that's been obliterated is travel and tourism. Who knows whether that's going to come back? And then some audiences have been obliterated. For instance, in my space, some of the people we work with are in learning and development and
Yeah.
sales enablement. Those roles have been kind of obliterated, although most of the businesses, especially the service businesses, continue to operate, continue to do fine. Some companies were down 20%, but overall, everybody stayed intact. I think a lot better than a lot of folks expected. So right now, it requires more targeting than you may have had to do in the past.
Okay.
But assuming you're targeting companies that are doing okay and they haven't been decimated, then it's sell as you always have. And uh, a few things to keep in mind. Number one, companies are using the three things that are going on as an excuse to
Okay.
demand lower prices. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on margins. And this is not the time to be giving up margin.
Right.
You have to put company first and say we can't be giving stuff away.
Okay.
So to sell value, that requires a consultative approach and a
Mhm.
solid sales process. So companies must be training on sales process, consultative selling, listening and asking questions, and providing value. The second thing is lots of stalls and put-offs right now, delayed closings,
Yeah.
people not wanting to talk with salespeople, using the crisis, any one of the three versions as an example. Salespeople have to drill and skill on objection handling, installs, and put-offs.
Okay.
Um, they've got to be able to differentiate like never before, because the companies that aren't on spending freezes, that are going to spend money, are going to spend it sparingly,
Yeah.
and they're going to be very selective. So to differentiate from everybody else, just have to be better than everybody else, not
Right.
have better products, not have a better company. You must be better. You must outsell everybody that's gunning for the same business. So you've got to drill 30 minutes a day on how to handle all the resistance that's going to be coming your way.
Okay. Well,
Other
so
than that, not much has changed.
just a regular old,
Yeah.
just a regular old week. So one thing that has changed, and we're doing it right now, is video. Video certainly was the emerging channel, probably for a few years now, but businesses have been forced to use video thanks to kind of stay at home. Much of that's been internally focused. So I'm interested to hear what your outlook is on video and how it should be used in the selling process looking into the future.
If I had my way, every client would continue to sell remotely over video.
Okay.
I mean, just the benefits of video. Forget the technology for a minute. Just selling over video versus being in a territory. The outer reaches of those territories that salespeople could rarely, if ever, call on. You
Sure.
can reach that remote part of your territory as easily as the business right down your street.
Yeah.
So coverage improves. Efficiency. What might have been 2, 3 visits a day driving through a territory, you can do 8 a day over video.
Right.
And cost is zero. So all the travel expenses, the hotels, the airplanes, the eating out, the tolls, the gasoline, gone. Video is wonderful, and what this crisis proved was that, if you could get yourself comfortable in front of the camera,
Yeah.
and you could find yourself a nice quiet area and put a background that isn't distracting, that you can sell over video. And
Mhm.
I've been selling this way, just like we're talking right now, for 10 years.
Right.
The platforms have changed and evolved, but I I haven't left my office for a decade. And so doing this from home was just simply doing this from home instead of doing this in my office. We've trained online live for 10 years.
Okay.
Actually longer. We started in 2003, but we
Wow.
went to online live only 10 years ago. So nothing new for us, but clients. It was an evolution over the last 8 weeks of
Right.
getting them comfortable turning their cameras on, putting their microphones on, looking at the camera, centering themselves in front of the frame, and talking confidently like they're in front of somebody. And I think once they got the hang of it,
Hmm.
they realized you can do everything and more that you can do face to face. So certainly there are some customers that'll require salespeople to visit,
Sure.
especially salespeople that had some role in inventorying,
Okay.
some role in inspecting equipment. Uh, some companies had salespeople as implants. I mean, you basically you come to my place of business every day, 7 days a week, and
Right.
it's where you work because we are your only customer. But
Right.
I think by and large, most companies have learned that most people can continue selling this way, and it'll be a good thing.
I totally agree, and I'm incredibly impressed that you have actually been doing this for nearly a decade now. We I feel like we've overcome this artificial barrier for people to have resistance to get on video, right? Like, I don't like how I sound, I don't like how I look, and I feel like we've been forced to kind of push past that. But do you think there
Well,
are any other?
the funny thing is, we look and sound is exactly the same as we look and sound face to face. So
I totally agree.
the
That's
only
why I say
difference is we're looking at ourselves while we're doing
correct.
this.
Yeah, that's why I said it's artificial, right? Because you are who you are. You sound the way you sound. Um, are there other barriers that you can see moving forward, or ways to overcome those barriers to get people onto a video, as opposed to because we all know, and especially you, nonverbal communication is huge as it pertains to being able to effectively communicate, and video allows you, if outside of being face to face, literally belly to belly, this is the best medium to be able to do it. But I still feel like there's going to be some resistance. Do you have any ideas to help overcome those resistances to those
Well,
clients?
with all the clients that we work with, most of the resistance is gone now, but it
Okay.
was really strong 10 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were resisting like crazy, but now they're doing it, and their only challenge is some of their customers don't want to get on video,
Okay.
especially some of their industrial customers.
Right.
Um, no, where if they're in the factory, they're not sitting at a computer, they're walking around, they'd rather be on a phone.
Okay.
So I think the bigger resistance will be industrial clients who aren't sitting in an office, manufacturing clients who aren't sitting at a desk, who don't want to Facebook,
Yeah.
who don't want to walk looking at a salesperson, and who will prefer the phone. But uh, this this is just so much better.
I totally agree. So what I'm hearing is much of the resistance, if not all of it, is gone. So if you're not leveraging it, you really are putting yourself at a disadvantage because of the effectiveness of this channel.
Yeah, if you can't overcome the resistance in 10 weeks, it's hopeless.
Right. Okay. Well, then my last question is: so you've had a storied career. If you can, if you can go back in the time machine, um, is there any one piece of advice that you might tell, younger Dave? Hey, uh, you should rethink this because it's going to save you some heartache over the years.
That's a great question. And I'm pretty proud of the Dave evolution over 35 years. I've
Okay.
generally been on the front edge of every wave, leading the way.
Okay.
Um, I've got I've probably had 500 sales experts come to me for coaching
Sure.
over the last 25 years. Um, so I think the only thing I would do differently from my perspective is I would have emphasized the importance of active listening skills
Okay.
as the number one skill a
Yeah.
lot earlier than I did.
Okay. Yeah, no, I feel hearing a lot of, specifically with what's happening now, serve not sell, and active listening is definitely the basis for that. And I think the older I get, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always stressed the importance of questioning skills,
Okay.
but but it took me a few years to realize that all those questioning skills are useless if salespeople aren't listening.
Right.
Because
Okay.
questioning isn't a list of 50 questions; it's coming up with a great follow-up question to what you just heard.
Right.
And if the salespeople aren't really hearing it, they don't come up with that follow-up question.
You miss that actual golden
Yeah,
opportunity.
back in the 80s, I wasn't there yet.
Right.
I was getting there in the 90s, but we had to change centuries for that to really lock in.
Right. Okay. Well, I would like to thank you for being on our segment today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Your time. Yeah, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
I hope so.
Okay.